Can you hear me okay? Welcome. Good morning, everybody. We're going to get started. Hopefully everybody had a chance to get a snack, and just one little word of warning. You see the sign about the restroom. We have a preschool. So the little preschoolers use the ladies' room, and the gentleman's room is for all of us. So I just ask the gentlemen, please don't use the standing, what do you call it? The urinal. Thank you. That would be frightening for most of us. So, but sorry about that, but it is cute to see the little munchkins, right? Welcome, everybody. I didn't touch anything. There we go. Okay. I have a little delay on this. Oh, because I was doing the wrong thing. There we go. So today we're having our first learning community of the fiscal year, and we're going to talk about best practices in trauma-informed care. Our first two learning communities are going to be on that topic. And today we're going to talk about developing programs to support youth resilience. And we have some great speakers. We have Oscar Perez. Say hi, Oscar. For those of you that he came last year and spoke to us, and he's back by popular demand. He got a great reviews. And then we also have Catherine Eustace, director of Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program. Yay, there's Catherine. So very excited about that. For each of my learning communities, I'm going to try to incorporate this year somebody from one of our region counties. So that's my goal, and Catherine is filling that for me today. For those of you that don't know Strategies 2.0, here's our mission. Our main role here is to support the family strengthening field, and the learning communities are one piece of that project. And I'm very, very fortunate. Did I introduce myself? Barbara DeGraff, Learning Community Facilitator. I'm very, very fortunate to be able to bring these learning communities to you guys. It's a wonderful, wonderful job, and I'm lucky that I'm able to do it. So just so you know, we have everything we do is for free. We have trainings, in-person trainings. These ladies are my team, who I should introduce now, Carrie Collins and Shane Meserve. Do the wonderful support here, but also do trainings and webinars. And they're going to be tomorrow in Placerville doing a training. It's all filled up on cultural competence, correct? And if you want a training, if you can get a group of 20 people, contact Carrie. Oh, it's up to 30 now. Oh, I'm glad I learned that. You can get a group of 30 people, may take a little cross-county work in some of our smaller regions with less population. Contact us and we will arrange a training. We'll come to you, and we're happy to do that. We want to hit every county in the state of California. That's our goal. And of course, our webinars are also online, and they're available to everybody. I want to encourage you to make sure you sign up on the Strategies 2.0 website if you haven't already. Get on our mailing list. Check out our resource page. We're always adding things. We now have Building Community Resilience. We used to have just volume 1. Now we have volumes 1 and 2. We have knowledge to action briefs. There's a sample of one on your table about learning communities. We have ones on strengthening families, a whole host of topics that you can use, all free. And then we have a bunch of external links for resources on a variety of topics. So I would encourage you to make sure that you visit. So, and also, all of these events are recorded. So if you don't want to be recorded, we have a bag. No, just kidding. Write your questions. Folks that are online, they can write their questions into the chat box. You can do the same thing and hand it to us, and we'll ask your question for you. But everything goes up on our Strategies 2.0 YouTube channel. So all of our webinars are up there, all of our learning communities are up there, and you can utilize the materials free of charge for trainings in your own community. It's a real wealth of information. And we do this thanks to our funder, Office of Child Abuse Prevention in state of California. They provide all the money that allows us to bring these free programs to you. So thank you, funder. For those of you that use social media, if you use any of these hashtags and you want to promote our programs, it's a great way of letting people know what's going on and just bringing these programs to more people in the state. We're going to make sure we start and end on time. I already started a little late. I was 6 minutes late. I'm sorry. I hope you'll be able. That's right. I have to. Well, don't ask me to talk faster. That's a dangerous thing to say because I could always go faster. But we're going to start and end on time. I hope you can participate. We want to make these learning communities as participatory as possible. So feel free. I know it's hard sometimes for our online folks. Use the chat box. It is monitored. So Shane is monitoring it. You can raise your hand, chat in, ask questions. And then also for our remote sites, we have 2 today. We can unmute you or you can chat in as well, your questions. We do ask for the folks here in the hub, if you have a question, we're gonna run over like Oprah with the microphone because the only way our remote people can hear you is with a microphone, okay? So it's you know, just bear with us on that, but it does help to keep everyone feeling a part of the program. As much as possible, limit your sidebar conversations, silence your cell phones, and please get up as you need, go to the restroom. If you want snacks, there's plenty of snacks here for you, help yourself. We will take a break at about 11 after Oscar is done with his presentation. I'm gonna put out more snacks here. Sorry for the online and remote folks. You won't have access to the dips and chips. But we'll have more snacks here, and then we're going to go into Catherine's presentation. Okay. Learning communities, there is a knowledge to action brief. I didn't make, for so many of you are repeat customers, which I so appreciate. I'm trying to not kill as many trees, so I just left on the table, those of you that are new to learning communities, basically it's like a training, except our goal here is that we share the wisdom in the room. And as much as possible, we want to bring in people from different areas of our sphere of social services, go into probation, schools, etc., so that we can bring in our community to the learning community, and we can share what we know, and we can help each other learn about what we don't know and what we need to learn. Okay. And this is your learning community. So one of the things that's important to note is when I'm going to very briefly go over our plan for the year, all of the topics came from you folks. And thank you to the people. I had 45 people respond to a survey that I did after our last learning community. People who were at the last learning community provided input into topics. That's how we chose today's topic. Youth mentoring came up as one of the highest. We really want to help build resilience in our youth. So, and I can say, because I'm from New Jersey, in our youth. And we want to, that came out number 1. I'll go through the list of topics, but these are from you. And if you have ideas for speakers, if you have any thoughts about what you want to see or hear, please let me know. I love to hear from you. And I got some great information. Catherine came to me through Robin. Thank you. So it's really from you that I get to bring some of the best people. Oh, and just very quickly, you have the handout for the evaluation in your packet. I think it's the first handout that you see. Please make sure to fill that out. That's also how we can improve our learning communities. And if you have to leave early, just leave it on the registration desk. Very, very helpful, your evaluations. So these are the goals for this fiscal year. And in your packet, there's a handout with the other 3 topics that we're going to be doing in this year. So we're going to, today we're exploring best practices in trauma-informed care. We're specifically looking at youth. Our next one, we're going to talk about self-care for staff and the people that we serve. And Vanessa is here. Yay, Vanessa is going to be one of our speakers. And she's going to talk about, we're really hoping that we can come up with concrete ways that you all can incorporate self-care into your programs, knowing you have limited funding and so forth. That's the first half of the year. That next one will be November 20th here, and then we'll have online communities. And if anyone out there in the online sphere would like to become a remote site, please let me know. It's really helpful to have remote sites where people can come together. Then for the second half of the year, we're going to look at 2 topics at a broader kind of macro level. We're going to look at rural policies to improve housing affordability and accessibility. That's going to be in February. And I have a tentative date of February 13th. I didn't have it before I printed out the material. So if you want to just make a note of that, I do have to confirm it with the folks here, but tentatively we have the 13th of February. I will let you know when I follow up with you. And then our last one, we're going to talk about how expanding technology in rural communities can support these goals. So I'm going to hopefully have examples of programs that are online programs that can support the goals that we talked about. And I'm also going to try to find somebody, and Pat Portco, who I was talking to earlier this morning, we're going to try to find some folks who can help us grapple with the issue of broadband and internet accessibility, because that is a big problem in our region, just across the region. We all have that issue, because it's fine and good to have a program that uses technology, but then people can't use it because they don't have broadband access. So that's going to be our last learning community of the year. And again, any input, please let me know. On your table, I put an example of the practice methods, which we talk about at each learning community. And I just am going to, once again, just encourage you to go and look at the Vehicles for Change monograph, which is on our Strategies 2.0 website. The Vehicles for Change monograph is focusing on family resource centers and how they can become a vehicle for change in their community, but it also applies to all of us. And one of the areas that they talk about is looking at your focus, your program. What are you seeking to achieve? What level are you trying to impact? Many of us try to impact more than just well-being one-on-one services. We do trainings, we do education, we go into growth and development services. Others of us go even broader to civic engagement. You know, you might have people coming into your programs that you're trying to encourage to vote. You're trying to encourage them to get involved in activities. It's really important as we learn together to think about what is your focus? Where are you trying to impact your community? And then that helps me as well to try to identify trainers and speakers that can help you focus in that area better. So today, for example, we're going to talk a lot about well-being services. Austria's going to look at that, and then growth and development. Catherine will look at that. And you look at our learning communities for the year, the accessibility of housing is a big topic. That's going to really, it's going to require community development and civic engagement. So we really want to make sure that we look at how are we trying to make change in our community. Is that different than what the folks online are seeing? Or okay, everything good? Okay. So today's objectives, we're going to talk about what are the successful components of a youth mentoring program. Look at how can we incorporate youth voices into our program. Again, how do we get them to tell us what they want so that we can make things relevant? Try to identify steps to implement a youth mentoring program, and then we're going to provide time, as we always do, for an interactive activity at the end. And one of the things that I would ask right now is, how many people, and the online folks, if you could raise your hand, and the remote sites as well, raise your hand if you currently have a youth mentoring program and are looking at enhancing that program. I'm trying to get a feel, okay. All right, so a lot of people do not have a program right now. Okay, that's good. How? That's good, okay. How about our online people? Is it not many? Okay. And then for our remote sites, do you have a youth mentoring program, Tammy? You do have one, okay. And then our folks, do we have our remote site in?
Yeah, Carrie Collins is actually.
Oh, Carrie Collins is actually. That's Serena. Okay. Do you guys have a youth mentoring program in Inyo County? Raise your.
It does. It says Inyo County has a mentoring program, and then we have someone here from Riverside, which does not.
Okay, great. Okay, that's helpful because at the end when we do our interactive activity, I'm going to start you out the folks that don't have a program kind of separated from the folks that have a program and want to work on program enhancement. It's really two different issues, although a lot of the principles apply to both. Okay. All right, and then our flow for the day, we're done with our registration welcome, and we're almost updated. We're gonna have our presentations. In between Oscar's presentation and Catherine, we're gonna take like a 5-minute break for snacks, bathroom, but again, feel free to get up and move around. Do not feel like you have to sit quietly. Well, quietly maybe, but you don't feel like you have to sit. And then we'll have our networking time, and then evaluations and adjourning. And I'm gonna ask folks to do a little report out. I know that sometimes people don't like that as much, but it's a really great way to learn from each other. Today we have the hub. We have our folks in Loyalton. Hi, are you alone, Tammy, or does she have some other folks? I can't see, but anyway. Well, we're with you, Tammy. We're with you. And then we have a nice group in Bishop. Yay. And then we have our online participants. And as much as possible, we hope that everyone will feel like they're a part of the program. Okay. All right, really quickly, I'm going to take 5 minutes and we're going to do some introductions in the room. If you guys find somebody that you don't know, and if that's hard to do, I'm sorry, but find somebody that you don't know and ask them, why do you do what you do? 5 minutes for introductions. And then our folks in the remote sites and online, do introductions yourself. And our online folks, if you could let us know why you do what you do. 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to come back. Hopefully you met somebody you didn't know. Come on back to the light. Hopefully you met someone that you didn't know. You're going to be next. Come on back. So we have lots of different folks online. I just want to shout out to a deputy probation officer in Riverside County. Woo! That's our furthest. Welcome. All right, so our speaker, we're going to start with Oscar Perez, and Oscar's a wonderful speaker that those of you who may have heard him in the past, he's great, and he's also fun to go out to dinner with. We had a nice dinner last night. He comes to us from Nevada City. Well, unfortunately, somebody asked where did we go to dinner. I will share that we were going to go to a little Italian restaurant on Main Street in Jackson, but it closed, so we ended up at Mel's Diner. Can't go wrong. It's a classic. All right, so here's Oscar.
All right.
All right. You can put that on there, and then you can hang this on your little thing on your pants.
Come on now.
You're all
we
set.
go.
And remember the delay.
And the delay. Good morning, everybody. How are y'all doing today? Great, great. Well, thank you for having me and thank you for being here. This is something that is, I was just telling Catherine, it's the driving force behind everything that I do, is getting to work with youth and make a really strong impact on them. And in large part, and I don't know if this is the same for some of you that are here, some of you that are listening online, but in large part, it's because I get to be the person that I didn't have in my life. And in the environment, the community I grew up in, there was a lot of violence and there was a lot of the kinds of challenges that we see in working with youth in different areas, a lot of alcohol and drug abuse and things like that. And it was really challenging to try and find any type of healthy mentor, period. But a healthy male mentor, that was like trying to find a unicorn, right? And so throughout my life, my purpose in doing what I do has been to figure out how we can make a positive impact in the young people in our lives and the young people around us, and to do it in a way that doesn't get tangled up in a lot of the, let's say, the procedures that we're accustomed to being taught. Right? There's this perspective in mental health that for some time has historically been based on checklists and ways of diagnosing people for certain things that are based on these kind of rigid forms of evaluating where a person is and what they're going through. But in my experience, that makes things extremely challenging to actually connect with somebody as a human being. Because we can go through and do these kinds of evaluations and fulfill them for administrative purposes, but if that becomes the extent of the work that we're doing, it becomes really, really difficult to actually genuinely connect with whoever it is that you're mentoring and figure out what's going on with them and how you can be a part of helping them grow and also learning to grow in that relationship itself. So one of the things that Catherine and I mentioned when we met earlier today is the importance of breaking this us and them narrative. It's the importance of getting past this idea that the young people that we serve are people that are coming to us with problems and that are coming to us looking for solutions, and we're the ones that have the solutions. And I'm not saying that this is something that is generally taught or trained in the organizations or services that we offer, that we do. What I'm saying is that this is something that's deeply embedded in our society as a whole. So we have to look beyond the types of occupations and roles we play in the organizations that we work in, to the fact that in our upbringing, a lot of us were taught that there's this division between youth and adults. And that division a lot of times is very antagonistic, right? So a lot of times people will unconsciously have this perspective of, oh, well, I know what this kid needs and I can help this kid, right? Or this, if they just listen or follow the program, things will be fine, right? And that creates a separation between understanding the human aspect of the people that we're serving. And in my experience, it's only through connecting on that human level that we can have any real kind of impact in the lives of the young people that we're serving. But we also have to be open to understanding that they're teaching us, that in our interactions and in our relationships with them, they are constantly mirroring back to us aspects of ourselves that also need to be witnessed, and that in some cases need to be healed and need to be integrated, so that we don't continue to create these kinds of separations between ourselves and the young people that we serve. So what I want to do to start out is invite you all to do a little exercise that I like to do in different groups, specifically working with service providers in the communities that they serve. And it's going to be just a short little process that we're going to go through, and then we're going to discuss it after the fact. And for those of you that are online, I don't even know where to look. Like, where is this mysterious interweb? Okay, so for those of you that are online, if you are in a group, then that's wonderful, because I'm going to ask you to find somebody to share your experience with after the fact. And if you're not in a group, then I would say please do this exercise as well, and write down whatever comes up for you in the process of the exercise. And then the actual exercise itself is written, it's in your packet, and it's something that you can go through and you can read and you can walk other people through. And I would suggest that you practice it, because it's a good one. It's pretty deep.
It says pathways to resilience. Just want to repeat that on
Okay.
the title.
Okay. So it says pathways to resilience. Almost said resistance. Resilience in your packet. Okay, so is everybody ready? Yeah? Okay, raise your hands if you're ready. Let's try that one more time. Raise your hands if you're ready. All right, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to ask you all to close your eyes. You too. All right, now I want to ask you to take a deep breath. And as you're breathing in, feel that breath expanding, filling your lungs, and moving down and into your belly. And when you release that breath, just feel any tension that you have in your body, just leaving your body. And another. And let's do one more. Now I want you to think of the last time that you woke up in the middle of the night. And you know those times when you wake up, it's around 2, 3 in the morning, and there's something on your mind, some kind of worry, some concern, some fear. I want you to think about the last time that you felt that. And you know, it's interesting when we wake up at these times in the middle of the night, because these fears that we have, they show up, and they show up even more strongly than if we think about them during the day. And the funny thing about these fears is that these fears never show up alone. They always bring a party with them. So one fear pulls the next, pulls the next, pulls the next, pulls the next. And I want you to really feel into how that experience was that last time that you woke up in the middle of the night and you felt that anxiety or that fear in your body. And as you do this, I want you to pay attention to how your body feels. I want you to pay attention to what that sense of anxiety or that sense of fear does to you. See, for some people, it makes their breathing shallow. They start to feel this constricting in their chest. For other people, they start to feel like they need to jump out of bed and take off running down the street because the anxiety builds so much. And whatever that concern is, whatever that worry is, it's a unique one to each and every one of you. I mean, for some people, it might be not knowing whether or not they're going to be able to make their house payment or their rent the next month. For others, it might be a fear about a partner, a spouse, or a loved one. And yet for others, it might be about their health. Whatever it is for you, I want you to really feel into that. And something really interesting happens when we wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and these fears show up. Because it doesn't really matter if there's somebody next to us when this happens. In that moment, we can feel incredibly alone. So again, I want you to pay attention to your body. What are the sensations in your body? I also want you to pay attention to whether or not you're resisting doing this, because that's obvious in a few faces in here. And if you're resisting it, why are you resisting it? What are you afraid of uncovering? So again, just scan your body and see, is there tension in your jaw? Butterflies in your stomach? Are your palms sweaty, like mine standing up here? How does that anxiety come through in your physical being? What does that anxiety feel like? If you're actually doing this, then I want to ask you to raise your hand when you feel like you've gotten a pretty good grasp on what is going on in your body as you're focusing on these emotions. Okay. Now I'm going to ask you to take another deep breath. And this time as you exhale, I want you to release any of that tension. I want you to feel yourself back here in this room before you open your eyes. Just feel the chair under you. Feel your feet on the ground. Take one more deep breath. And when you exhale, let more of that tension go. And another. And on the next one, I'm going to ask y'all to open your eyes. Okay. Who can feel how the energy in the room changed? Raise your hands. Yeah? Okay. Who can still feel that physical sense of what happens in your body? You can? Okay. Who knows what I'm talking about the 2 a.m. thing or 3 a.m. thing? Yeah? I actually had an episode of that last night. And it's funny, I mean, it was associated with some travel that I have coming up and a few other things that I've got going on, but I knew I was going to do this today. And I went to bed last night and I woke up and I felt pretty rested and I was like, it must be close time to get up. And I go and I look at the phone and it's 2 a.m. And then all of a sudden I remembered, I got to change this flight and I got to pay for this. I got to do this thing and that thing and the other. And like those worries come in, right? And they bring all their friends. And I wasn't able to sleep until I actually did something about it. So here's what's next. For those of you that are here, I want to ask you again to find somebody that you don't know, ideally, or someone that you don't know well, okay? And when you do that, you're going to split up into partner A and partner B, okay? Then partner A, what you're going to do is you're going to describe to partner B what you felt physically, okay? Partner B, it's your job to just focus entirely on what your partner is telling you. Just listen and look them in the eyes. It's not your job to think about how to console them. It's not your job to think about making them feel better or thinking of ways that you can counsel them and help them. It is simply your job to listen and to allow partner A to express fully what they felt in their body doing this. Got it? Yeah? After a little while, I'm going to say switch, and you're just going to switch roles. And again, you're not going to talk about what the other person told you. You're just going to share what you felt physically, okay? And we're focusing just on the physical sensations, which means you don't have to open up and tell this person what your deepest, darkest fear is, okay? You're just going to tell them how your body felt as you did this. Sound good? Yeah? Okay, so you can, we do, and I'll tell you when to switch. Okay. We're gonna do 3 minutes per person.
Okay.
So I will, yeah? Okay.
Is it the guy? Are you off?
No. Got it. All right, everyone, we're going to start wrapping that up, finding your way back to your seat. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Okay, there we go. All right. How'd that go? Interesting. Yeah. Can I get just some feedback? Do people raise their hands and we'll bring the mic around and see what came up for you?
For us not knowing each other, we had the same things, that we both were very fidgety during the exercise, and we both had that in common. Felt like we could not sit still.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share? No?
I found it hard to concentrate in the beginning, but ultimately I felt like most of the tension that I was having was coming from my neck, and I needed to like move it around and try to like let it out. It was like, but honestly it started in my stomach, which is weird, but it makes a lot of sense because when things bother me, I instantly get some type of stomach thing going on.
Okay.
The neck part though, I could actually feel that like, happening the more I tried to concentrate. So that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
you.
Anybody else want to share?
Besides having tears pouring down my face, I'm a crier anyway, so don't feel bad for me. I felt myself getting really tense and kind of curling in on myself a little bit. And my breathing got super shallow and fast, which was a little bit upsetting.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was just going to share that with the exercise of talking, it was hard to just listen and not want to respond and nurture. That was really hard.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Do we want to go? Anybody else here in Jackson want to chat? Yeah. Anybody? Or do we want to unmute, or we can?
Well, so we have a couple of people online who responded. We had Courtney from Mono County says that after we started talking about it, I felt a little ease that I'm not the only one who's experienced this or is experiencing this. She was worried about her dog. She was traveling for work and worried about her dog's health. He had a seizure a few weeks ago. So it said she felt a lot of anxiety, come back with her heart racing, but felt it lift away through the activity.
Good.
And then let's see. Oh, I guess that's it.
That's it.
Does our Tammy or anybody in Inyo? No. No. They didn't respond. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Keep this.
All right, wonderful. So we'll move forward with this. So when you were speaking to the other person and you were explaining how your body felt, just a show of hands, how many people felt like their partner was describing something that they were feeling? Okay. So there were a few that didn't feel that same kind of connection. Or that same kind of experience. So this exercise is in large part about helping us become aware of the fact that we all store anxiety and tension and fear in our bodies in similar ways. Now, the actual reason that we ascribe to our anxiety or our fear is unique. It's as unique as every single one of us in here. But the way that the body responds is very, very similar. In some cases, it's almost universal. And in recent decades, there's been the rise of this research that is focusing on the importance of the body in helping people move past trauma. The importance of utilizing the body through things like somatic therapy, and through there's wonderful resources out there like Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, that talk about the ways that trauma and anxiety embed themselves in the body. And this is really important because many of us are unconscious of the fact that we are walking around carrying these types of tension all the time. That 2 or 3 in the morning time period when we wake up is usually a time when we're not processing all of the noise that we're constantly processing to get through our day-to-day life. Right? We're not always, at those points, it's kind of like that Zen saying about seeing the moon through the water. If the waters are stirred up, they're dusty and cloudy, and you can't see the moon through the water. And that's how most of us live our day-to-day lives. Right? But when that settles, these underlying anxieties that we have start to show up and start to make themselves evident. But many of us are carrying those things in us every single day. And that is true for the young people that we work with as well. We live in a society that is extremely anxiety-ridden and very fear-based. And all you have to do is look at the media, look at social media, and see what is predominantly out there in the world. And also realize that these things are parenting more young people than human beings. Okay? So the levels of anxiety that they're dealing with are very high even for their young age. And we all know that it's extremely easy to be a teenager, right? Like it's like one of life's most joyful experiences. So you add to that the different kinds of social challenges that they have, and the fact that intellectually or mentally, they're being saturated all the time with these different fear-based and anxiety-ridden messages. It's really easy to sell people that are freaked out and anxious whatever you want, as long as it promises to alleviate that anxiety or that fear. So when we're working with young people, I want to invite you to remember this exercise and to pay attention to what's happening in your body when you're sitting across the table or standing across from a young person that you're working with. Because your body is also going to be an indicator of the relationship that you have with that young person. Any anxiety or any tension, anything like that that you feel in you when you're working with the younger person, they're going to feel and they're going to respond to, right? Whether they're conscious of it or not. Okay. This is, again, a biological thing embedded in us. We have these neurons called mirror neurons that make us reflect back to other people, the body postures and their micro expressions, and actually affect us emotionally as well. So I want to take this whole experience and move it into what we're going to talk about next. In my experience working with young people and helping young people develop resilience is directly connected to the kind of resilience that we embody in ourselves and in our own lives. And again, like I said earlier, there has been this historical trend to separate adults as those who know and young people as those who don't. And all we have to do is look at our educational system and see where that comes from. Right? How many of you were educated in a public school system? Right? So we come into those schools, and immediately the way that the curriculum is set up is that we are there to be taught how to think, what to believe, who to be, how to act. Okay? And very little in our traditional educational system really focuses on the young person showing up already having some aspect of value in and of themselves. And this is okay in the younger years to a certain degree, but then the resistance to it starts to show up as we start moving into adolescence, and from adolescence into young adulthood. But it's an entire system that these young people and that we all went through that taught us to think that we needed to think according to what someone else thinks in order to be accepted. And what I'm offering you today is that if we are really going to make any kind of impact in the lives of young people, we need to first and foremost realize that they have something of value that is uniquely theirs, that is intrinsic into who they are. And so I put together these 4 foundations of developing resilience, both in young people and in ourselves. And I'm going to keep referring back to that, right? We cannot give to somebody else what we do not have for ourselves. It's not possible, right? We can follow these different predetermined assessments and treatment plans and things like that. But again, that's not going to connect on a human level with the people that we're working with. So as we're looking at these 4 different foundations, they are respect, connection, growth, and gratitude or honoring. And starting with the first one, respect. What I just mentioned about the way that we've traditionally approached raising young people isn't coming from a place of respecting who they are, isn't coming from a place of respecting that they have gifts that are valuable to our communities and to our society. And again, we've all been raised that way too. So there are many things in our own lives, or many aspects of ourselves in our own lives, that we could potentially grow and develop and lead fuller lives. But we haven't done it because at some point in time in our life, we were told that that doesn't make money, or that's not socially acceptable, or the cool kids aren't doing it, or whatever, right? So many of us have had our unique gifts stunted. And we've grown into adulthood and lost that connection with those things. One of the things in my experience that working with youth has shown me is that when you respect them as an individual and respect just the idea that they're bringing something that is of value that you can learn from, many of the barriers that are automatically there will fall away. But it has to be from this place of understanding that, you know, we're all essentially in this together. And if adults, as we've understood them, had all the answers, well, this world would be a lot different than what it is right now. Which also isn't to say that young people should be given free rein to do whatever they want, because they need guidance as well. So it's this mutual relationship, it's this mutual respect, understanding that they have something that is very valuable in themselves and in who they are, that they can offer to us and to the community. And at the same time, we have something that is very valuable that we can offer to them and to our community. And in large part, in this type of work that we're doing, I would say that the most valuable thing that you have to offer to somebody is the willingness and the ability to see them. When we just did this last exercise, I asked Group B, the listening group, to just listen. Just listen. Like, don't formulate an agenda for how you can help this person. Don't reach out and try to like make that person's uncomfortable emotions go away. Because essentially what that teaches is that those uncomfortable emotions aren't socially acceptable. So those uncomfortable emotions end up getting stuffed down in the person, and they need to arise somehow. So if they don't arise through things like expressing sorrow or expressing grief or expressing anger even, they arise in very destructive ways. They arise as rage. They arise as violence. They manifest in these different ways that are completely against the social structure essentially, because that social structure doesn't let people really feel and process what they're going through and who they are. So respect is allowing a person the space to express what they're going through. It's not trying to think ahead of time into how we're going to treat them. It's not trying to think ahead of time of how do I make this person stop expressing this uncomfortable feeling? Because ultimately, you remember that mirror neurons thing that I just said? When we see people grieving or when we see people sad, it makes the same emotion arise in us. And that's what we're trying to stop when we're trying to console somebody that's going through a really intense emotion. And when we do that with young people, the communication is done. So resistance will automatically arise from them to anything that you have to offer from then on. So respect is essential, and respect is a foundation for connection. With both respect and connection, the key word, again, in my experience, is curiosity. We have to be genuinely interested and curious in who these young people are that are in front of us. And believe me, I know sometimes like we work with young people that it's super challenging. You know, they want to throw all their resistance at us. You know, and I understand that. But the more we respond to those kinds of inciting behaviors from them, the more we lose them. So when we become curious about why they are acting the way that they are, why they're feeling the things that they're feeling, it starts to create that possibility for connection. And in this process, we're also earning respect while giving it. We're earning their respect by being that one adult in their life that isn't just telling them who to be and how to be. By being that one adult in their life that's willing to sit and actually listen to their experience. And just by listening to it, they're seeing that it is valued. And there's nothing more powerful, I think, than genuinely being able to demonstrate to a person that you value who they are and what they're going through. So earning and giving respect is a very, very important thing. But in order to be able to get there, we have to be able to become aware of our own expectations and the projections that we put onto the people that we're working with and ourselves. Has anybody ever worked with a young person for a long period of time and gotten frustrated that they're not progressing fast enough? Raise your hand. Yeah. And you're like, but I'm doing everything. Like I'm throwing all the techniques. I'm throwing the kitchen sink at this kid. And I'm like being open with them and I'm doing all these different things and they're not progressing. They're not growing. They're not healing the way that I want them to, right? So the most important word in that statement is I. They are not doing what I want them to. And ultimately, that statement is not about the well-being of the young person. It's about the person that is expecting that young person to conform to their agenda, right? And I have found myself in this position many times. And then I realize, and I'm like, oh, wait, okay. Like I need to allow this person to grow in their way, right? And projection is, it's when we think that the other person is embodying things that, well, when we have predetermined ideas, let's say, of who that young person is. Right? They're coming from such and such a background. They have such and such a record. They've had these problems with school, with the law, with whatever. And we have an idea of who that person is and how we're going to respond to them before they even walk through the door. And both of these things, expectation and projection, they're both really deep aspects of the ways that we function. So they require a lot of self-reflection. to be able to witness and be aware of where we are doing these things. And there are plenty like tools that we can use to become aware of these things. One of the ones that I offer, and I'm going to just put it out there right now, that I offer with people that I work with often is just simple writing. It's like getting a journal, setting an alarm on your phone for 20 minutes, and for those 20 minutes, writing anything and everything that comes to mind. But anything, physical sensations, right? Thoughts, fragments of thoughts. Like, you don't worry about grammar, you don't worry about whether or not the things that you're writing are making sense or anything like that. You're just stream of consciousness, letting everything flow as it flows, as you're writing it out. This provides a really good mirror for what's going on beneath the surface of our conscious thoughts. And it can help us become more and more aware of these unconscious expectations and projections that we make. Right? Cultivating empathy. This exercise that we just did, that's what it's all about. Right? It's empathy and connection. It's realizing that we all have different names to our problems. But fundamentally, the problems that we face nowadays in the world that we live in are largely social problems. And they're based, again, on social expectations and social fears, largely. And when you can connect to those underlying responses in your body, then you can start to understand what someone else is going through, even though the reason for those physical manifestations, let's say, is different. Right? Because at the core, they're very similar fears. They're fears that have to do with rejection and fears that have to do with not being accepted. Right? And again, we all know teenage years, every single one of us was loved by everybody, right? So again, being aware of yourself and developing that kind of empathy with the young people you're working with. And this next one, I really like this term, responsible self-disclosure. It's a term that I first heard from Sam Himmelstein from the Center of Youth Studies. This is something that is, again, extremely powerful in developing connection with young people. And it's when you are talking to them and they're telling you their life experience, and you realize that there's something in your life experience that you went through that is similar to what they're going through. And you can share that. Right? Because through being vulnerable or being willing to be vulnerable with somebody, you're also creating a deeper connection with them. If you want to know more about vulnerability and its power, look into Brené Brown's work. It's extremely powerful. And more than just being powerful, it's human. It allows us to connect with each other on a much deeper level. But the responsible part is really important here. Because you have to be very discerning about what you do and don't share with the young person. And again, we have to go back to what we were saying earlier about projection and expectation. Because in some cases, people will self-disclose aspects of their lives to a young person, not so much because it's going to benefit the young person, but because they think that the young person is going to think they're cool for it. And in those cases, it's really important to be aware of whether or not the things that we're saying, the words that we're using, the experiences that we're sharing are encouraging that young person to continue to do destructive things in their lives, maybe. In my case, I share a lot about what my youth was like when I'm working with teenagers or young adults. I share a lot about it. But I share a lot about it because my life has changed so drastically since then. And I can share with them the tools that help my life get from where I was in those really difficult times to where I am now. And so by sharing with them that I understand some of the experiences that they have or that they're having, it opens the door for me to say, and by the way, check out these tools. And since I've been using these tools, check out the things that I've been able to do. And it's just opening their mind up to the fact that they're not going to stay where they are, and that we can help them get to the places that maybe the places they want to be, maybe beyond the places they want to be. But there has to be a context for the different tools that we offer them. Right? And this creates a mutually understood context. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. Gratitude. Gratitude is really, really, really important. With gratitude, you want to first create a practice of it for yourself, for your own life. Like I was saying earlier, that media thing affects all of us too. All of us, all the time, right? And if it didn't affect you, you probably wouldn't be here, because you'd be living in a cabin up in the woods somewhere and like had no contact with humanity, right? But so we need to develop this ability of realizing what we're grateful for in ourselves, and then what we're grateful for in the people that we work with. And in a way, this is saying that it's important to acknowledge the efforts that the people that we are working with are making, to acknowledge their efforts and to acknowledge their gifts, what is unique about them, and express gratitude to them for showing up. But we also have to learn how to do it with ourselves. Because again, you cannot give somebody what you do not know how to give yourself. Honoring. So honoring is a little different than gratitude. Gratitude is very direct, and it's about that connection that you have or that you establish with another person. Honoring is about witnessing what that other person has to offer to the world beyond that one-on-one relationship. Right? And so again, when we're working with young people and we have that ability to witness them, and we have that ability to actually connect with them on a level that lets us see what is unique about them, what their unique passion is or the unique gift is, and we honor that, we honor it by encouraging them to see how that benefits their community, how it benefits the world at large. And in that way, just by acknowledging, things like, hey, it's really cool how you coordinated your belt, your sneakers, and your hat. It shows that you pay a lot of attention to detail and that you know how to combine things in an artistic way. Right? That's an acknowledgement. That's very different than saying like, hey, cool shoes and hat. That's actually speaking to something that's inside the person. And you can take that and go a step further and say, and by the way, I mean, some of your friends could use some advice on these things that you're really good at. Like, you should go and help them. Right? And I just picked that off the top of my head. I mean, it can be anything. It could be video games. I love how much you like to figure out those puzzles in those games. Like, shows that you have a really sharp wit. Right? Whoever thought of video games that way? But that's seeing that there's something underlying the behaviors that these young people engage in, and speaking to that. So one of the questions that has come up is, how do we inspire and engage youth leaders? And for all of this, I would say we go back to those first four things. And the reason I brought up those first four things is because those things are universals as well. They're not program specific, they're not theme specific. They can be applied to any type of program. It's more about the direct relationships we develop, right? So when we think about how we're going to engage youth leaders, I want to ask you all, have you ever had the experience, you know, working for these different organizations, going to meetings about meetings? About meetings? Yeah. So how engaged are you when you have to go to a meeting about a meeting that you know is probably not going to lead to anything that you're personally connected to or personally interested in? And what's your incentive for going to meetings about meetings that aren't going to do anything directly for your life? Your incentive is that you're getting a paycheck. That's your incentive. So when we're asking ourselves, well, why don't these kids come to my program? Well, what's their incentive? If to them, they're going to a program and it's about meetings, and somebody else put the whole thing together with their agenda and they're not getting a paycheck, why are they showing up? Right? If we want to engage young people, we need to engage their interests and not engage them as pseudo experts. Engage them as people that are really curious to learn about what they're passionate about. And say, okay, well, let's figure this thing out. Tell me about what this is that you like to do. And how can I learn about this? And really, your friends are into that too? Oh, that's cool. Okay. So which of your friends does which part of it best or whatever? And then you start developing a dialogue there. And they see that you value them and their life experience. And again, that's a rarity. In my experience working with young people, that's a rarity for them to feel like there's an adult that genuinely is interested in learning about what they're into. And that's interested in learning about it from a perspective of, I have no idea what this is, and you can teach me about it, and I think it's really cool. Right? And the secret is that you don't have to really think it's really cool. You have to realize that whatever that interest is just a pathway to connecting with them, which is really cool. Right? So we engage their interests. We acknowledge their gifts. Everybody has different gifts. Some people have gifts for speaking. Some people have gifts for organization. Some people have gifts for fundraising or rallying friends, right? Some people have gifts for being the shy one in the back that's really good at writing or designing things, whatever. We can't expect that they all have the same gifts, but when you start putting together a group that you're mentoring, look at the different things that they naturally gravitate towards and position them in places in the organization that exalts their natural gifts and natural talents. And again, along the way, acknowledge their positive contributions. Then the next part's all about accountability. You have to encourage them to mentor younger people in the group, just like you were mentoring them, right? Because that puts them into a position of leadership that, again, increases their social value within the group. And it increases their social value to their peers, and it also increases their social value to the organization or administration that's putting those groups together, right? And in the process, you're teaching them that they're responsible to their peers for the growth and development of their peers, just like they're responsible to themselves for that. And if you want somebody to change a behavior and you put them in a place of leadership where they're teaching that new behavior, believe me, they're gonna adopt that behavior a lot faster than if they just thought they had to learn it and embody it as an island unto themselves. Last, get feedback from them and implement it. This is so important. So many different communities that I've worked with, be it teenagers, young adults, or adults, that work with different social service organizations voice their frustration at having organizations come in, do surveys, get feedback, ask their opinions, and then never follow through. Right? This is about trust, and it's about respect. So if you're working with the group and they offer some kind of different perspective or something new that they want to do, like actually implement the things that they have told you, even if it's a little bit at a time, but acknowledge that their thoughts and their efforts are being used to continue to develop the group. Questions? Yes.
So going back to something you said about yourself,
Mhm.
on the wrong page here, just a minute. That, about your own upbringing, your own childhood or youth, and that you found tools
Mhm.
that help change your life and guide your life, and that's what you share with youth you work with.
Mhm.
So my question is, what in you do you believe made you capable of using those tools, of recognizing and actually using the tool? Because tools, I'm guessing you use are available to a lot of people, even other youth you've worked with. But what about you made you capable of using that tool?
Okay. So thank you. That's a really good question. I grew up bilingual. Right. My first language was Spanish. I didn't start speaking English till I was about 4 or 5 years old. And I grew up right on the US-Mexico border. Right? So my life was half Mexico, half the US. So my whole life I've been translating things. Right? And as I grew, I started learning how to translate concepts to different practices that didn't seem related. Right? And so when I really dove into studying things like Jungian psychology and the process of individuation and these other aspects of psychology, I saw that trajectory mirroring my life as a martial artist, because martial arts has been my big passion forever. Right? When I was like 6, I was like running around, chubby little kid trying to be a ninja everywhere, right? There was this one song from an old movie that if they started playing it, I'd start like throwing kicks and punches, and didn't matter where I was, be in the supermarket and stuff like that. But obsessed with martial arts. And so when I started learning all these different aspects of how people heal from trauma, I started seeing the parallels between that and this thing that I was passionate about. And then that led me to be able to start seeing the parallels between these different like psychological or emotional or psychosocial tools. And like I said, things like video games, that I have never been into video games my entire life, right? They're like totally foreign thing to me. But I understand that there's a challenge in the game that the kids that are playing are attempting to overcome. And I also understand that at that moment in their life, this imaginary world that they're playing in is safer for them and is more exciting for them than whatever social environment they're living in outside. Right? That's exactly what it was when I was running around pretending to be a ninja. And I think we can take any interest that a person has and apply these kinds of understandings to it. That's why I say it's so important to get to know the interests, the unique interests and gifts of the young people that we work with. Because once you see it, you can start to see, oh, okay, they're doing this because it is giving them a social context that feels safe or beneficial to them. Right? They're seeking to grow through this because they're not feeling that growth in another area of their life. Right? So how can we take that and really sort of shine a light on it and make it grow? And then in the process, they see that starts affecting other people around them too. So that's a really long answer. The short one basically is my life experience has been about this. Yeah.
But being able to provide the example side by side, which is what you bring
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So just for our online folks, you were saying, that's okay. You're just reiterating that being able to provide examples of the exact things that you went through as a youth that now folks, it may be different. You were a ninja, now they're using these video games.
Right.
But you could relate to that.
Right.
Does
I come
anybody-
across chubby ninjas every now and then too.
Right. Ninjas are pretty cool. Anybody have any questions? Anybody here? Oh, here we go.
I just want to say, I used to run after-school programs for older youth for many years, and I working with staff who are typically young staff, 20, 25-year-old staff. So that responsible self-disclosure thing, I think, is a really important concept, and for us that are much older than 20 to 25 as well. In that, they may look like adults, they may look like we could have a reciprocal relationship with them, but we can't really. They're still children. They're still young people. We still have to be responsible for that piece of it and not putting too much of our stuff on them. I think that's a really important concept. But again, young people tend to work with young people, and so they're not quite evolved yet to think about that. This, what I'm doing in my life is, it's important to disclose some things, but we have to be really careful about what we disclose because we don't want to put that on them.
Absolutely.
We don't want to make them responsible for our life.
No.
For our life experience.
Not at all. And that's why the life experiences that we share are things that we share that are related to things that they are going through at that moment that lead into our being able to present tools that they can use to get through that situation, right? That's really important. Like it's not just opening up about our past in a gratuitous way. That's more about us than them.
And I was going to say also for me, I'm a CASA in South Lake Tahoe, and I've worked with a teenager now she's 17 now, so for 4 years, and have been really, the responsible self-disclosure part has been a real challenge because, the kids, they really want to relate to you. They want to connect and ask you about your life, et cetera. But what I have found is if it gives the person hope, if it's a situation that I can say, I know it's really tough right now. Here's a real situation, and we actually worked through it as a family and came out the other side. So I focus on hope. I think hope's a really important piece.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to say is that it's important to have tiers of mentoring,
right?
Because successful mentoring can't really happen if there's too big of a generation gap. So I'm 39. I have mentors that are in their 60s and 70s that have been doing the work that I do, for a long, long time. I have mentees that are in their early 30s, and I have mentees that are in their 20s and in their late teens. But a lot of the people that I'm working with that are in their 30s and their 20s, their homework, their job is to go out and find teenagers that they can work with. Because in my experience, like ideally, there has to be a certain proximity in age because that leads to shared cultural experience as well. And that shared cultural experience is really important for that respect and connection piece. So, so that's why implementing this idea of having the young people in the group start to mentor younger people in the group, right, is ultimately with the idea of being able to set something up where there are these different tiers of mentoring that are happening.
All right, any other questions? Any questions online or from our remote sites? Nope. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break. There are dips here in Jackson. Sorry for the people online. Hopefully you have something in your fridge. And help yourselves, and we'll be back in 5 minutes, which will be 11:11, a very auspicious number. See you online. Here you go. Oh, you don't need that. Thank you, Catherine. Okay.
Is it on? All right.
Anybody else cold? You want me to turn this?
I'm from Tahoe, so. There was a bunch of Westlanders.
Well, I have to say, Oscar's a really hard act to follow, so let's warm our hands with another round of applause. I think that our presentations will fit sort of hand in glove though, because his was about the internal, the actual relationship part of mentoring, and mine is more about how you would actually set up a program that would support those kind of relationships in more of an organized and informal way, although everyone should be seeking to have those kind of relationships with the young people that we work with. So I'm going to start with a little story. Because of Oscar's opening exercise, I needed to let you guys know that my 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning wake up was this morning about this presentation. I just thought I needed to share that because I was a very competitive student and I did really well in school, and I only failed 2 things in my K-12 experience: public speaking and golf. But, you know, I was in 5th grade and I had to talk about Abraham Lincoln, and I was incredibly nervous. And I started talking about Abraham Lincoln and I couldn't stop talking about Abraham Lincoln. And if you can imagine a 5th grade teacher's version of the hook coming to the front of the stage, pulling me off, it was pretty traumatic. And I didn't like public speaking for a really, really long time. And the thing that took me back to being able to do it was the opportunity to talk about mentoring. I think that he and I share that because it is so important, and it is I think the most important tool and the one that's so successful. When we were starting the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program, the field was full of interventions for young people, and they come and they go and they last and they don't last. And when I went to research how you start a youth mentoring program, I was looking at the mother of all youth mentoring programs, Big Brothers Big Sisters. Do you guys know how old that organization is? When I started the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program in 2002, Big Brothers Big Sisters was 110 years old. So what do you think? Does mentoring work? Anyway, so I'm going to tell you the story of how we started the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program, and then sort of zero in on what I think are 3 key components to its success. And then I want to move from there to the other people who are here and what they see as the key components of success for the programs that they have, because I'm sure I'm not going to hit them all. So once upon a time, there was a woman named Marion Coran, and I'm hoping that I'm sharing this with some people who haven't already heard it. Shira knows it because she works with me. And she was a public health nurse in Amador County, and she retired. They had a really nice, thriving mentoring program in Amador County, and she wanted to be a mentor, but she lived in Calaveras. So she went looking around for a mentoring program, and there wasn't one. So Marion, being Marion, she went around to the agencies in Calaveras County and said, why don't we have a mentoring program? And she found that there was money sitting in Calaveras County Behavioral Health. It was a small grant of $34,700, but behavioral health didn't want to start a program because they didn't have a plan for how they would sustain it. And everybody knows once you start a mentoring program, you must sustain it. That's the whole point. So she said, well, if I can find you someone who will be willing to start the program, will you give them that money? And they said yes. So she wandered around the county and landed at the Calaveras County Office of Education and asked then Superintendent John Brophy if he would be willing to accept the grant and take the risk of starting a mentoring program, and he said yes. That's where our story begins. So they had $34,700, and they decided that they needed to start with hiring someone to build the program. And that's there's a big long story about that, but I got the job. And there are several reasons I think I got it, but as it will play out, I think a key reason that I got it was that I had my own public relations business for about 10 years. So my perspective on how to start a youth mentoring program was very much about the public relations aspect of it. So I got the job. I started work on November 2nd, 2002. And at that time, Gray Davis was the governor of California, and his wife Sharon was really into mentoring, and there was such a thing called the Governor's Mentoring Partnership. I don't know how long you guys have been in your roles, but it was a fabulous technical assistance branch of the state government actually set up to help create quality mentoring programs. So I used that technical assistance. I got my own mentor from the South Bay, from a group called the Friends for Youth Mentoring Institute. And I'm not sure if anybody out there is going to be recognizing these names. And my mentor's name was Elsie Arevalo. And she came and helped me figure out how to start a mentoring program. She had one key piece of advice for the entire process. Is your community behind the program? Does your community want this program? You start, you stop, you get nowhere, you get everywhere based on whether or not your community will support your mentoring program, especially in a rural community. So I said, well, I don't know, I'm new, I don't know anybody. So, well, you kind of need to find out. So what we did was I put together a meeting and I put it out to everyone that anyone had heard of who might be interested in starting a mentoring program. I think I invited maybe 100 people, and it was just out anywhere. Anyone who's interested in starting a youth mentoring program, who wants to create the mission and the vision of the program, come to the library for dinner on a Thursday. And so I wasn't sure how this was going to play out. I took some RSVPs, but I wasn't sure where we were going to be with it. And when the day for the meeting came, 54 people showed up to this meeting. The chief of police, the head of health and human services, almost all of the supervisors, the county supervisors. I don't know if you guys who are from Calaveras know this, but the head of behavioral health. It was everyone who came was looking around going, how the heck did you get this group of people assembled to start a new program? Because nobody knew me. I was new in the county. I was like, it's not me, it's mentoring. And I had Elsie help with the thing, and I also had, do you guys know who Mark Dykin is? Mark Dykin agreed to come with his mother drum and started our meeting with his talk about the heart talk that he does, about how important the heart is and how much more important than the brain the heart is, and how everything that's successful is actually driven by the heart. And what he did, and this is, I love telling a story, I haven't told it in so long. He got everyone in that room, including my boss, the superintendent of schools, the chief of police, the sheriff, to close their eyes and allow him to entrain all of our hearts with his drum before we decided what the vision of our youth mentoring program for our county was going to be. That was 17 years ago. And we still have a very, very strong program with many of the same people involved. Everybody who's still in the county who was there then is still a part of our program. And I credit that. I know it's all touchy-feely, but I tell you, it really worked. So we developed a vision as a community, and the big thing, this is another thing that Elsie told me that I think is critical. I was hired half-time, and I was all alone to do this. She said, expectations are everything start to finish in a program like this. You need to make sure your community understands that if you're going to meet their expectations for the vision of this program, for the strength of this program, they need to give you enough time to do so. So we had this meeting on January 31st of 2003. Isn't it wild that I actually know these dates? I'm a little embarrassed. And my first match was made December 18th, 2003. It took me a solid year to set up the program, but I didn't do it alone. I had an entire advisory committee that built all of the policies, all the things that we wanted to be unique to our program. Everything was according to best practices, and every one of our 10 pilot phase mentors agreed to actually be a builder of the program. And we started with those 10 and moved forward from there. So that is how we started, and how we kept it funded has been through a lot of different fundraisers and things. I don't know if you guys are from how close you are to Calaveras, but have any of you heard of the Calaveras Follies? This was a long time ago, but it was our first major fundraiser. And that was another one of those, okay, I'll just sail off the cliff and hope that that I sprout wings. But we came together and decided that if we were going to have a youth mentoring program fundraiser, it had to be of, by, and for the community. So we put on a lip sync musical review starring all of the leaders in our community. So there was superintendents and bankers. It was hilarious and very, very successful financially for about 7 years. And then it was just it was so big that it kind of got to be too hard to continue to produce. But it was really fun while it lasted, and people still talk about it. Like, you got to bring back those follies. Like, are you on board? If you'll produce it, we'll do it. So that's the story of the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program. And there are 3 key points that I thought were things that we learned that are specific to rural youth mentoring programs. I've only set up this one program, so I'm very much hoping that this group will contribute their perspectives on what a quality youth mentoring program needs. But the 3 key things for us, I think, were, if you're gonna do it in a rural setting, you have to do it right the first time. You don't get a second chance if you mess up in a small community. Nobody forgets. I discovered that there had been an attempt at Big Brothers Big Sisters in the 80s, and it took 20 years before the community was ready to give it another try because of how that went down. Especially because you're talking about adult to youth, unsupervised relationships out in the community, you've got to be absolutely myopic about safety. And there are plenty of quality youth mentoring program models out there, but you want to subscribe to them absolutely rigorously. We are a best practices program. We are so rigorous about safety that there are people who are put off in volunteering with the program, but those are the people that don't fit with our program because we're so exhaustive about the safety screening. The other thing you need to do, of course, is give yourself the time to plan and build it correctly so that you can meet the expectations of the community. That said, once you're trying to do fundraising for a rural program, I think a really big key to our success is that we are in the County Office of Education. I've seen many other programs start and fail because they didn't have an umbrella organization, and because all we have to raise is the actual business budget, the salaries and the expenses for the program, and the COE actually gives us office space, well, most of our liability insurance, all of our tech support, human resources, everything. It's an invaluable contribution to the program. It makes it possible for us to exist on a really lean budget. We started in 2003 or 2002 with $34,700, and 17 years later, a position and a half and 3 mentoring programs strong, our budget is still only $110,000 because of the county office. It's amazing what their support has meant. Plus, get all of the benefits of that. We really, when we were starting the program, leaned on the county office's reputation to give us the validation that we needed when we were starting. So I think finding a good, strong umbrella organization, and I would recommend your COE, is a really good place to start a mentoring program. The third thing is community support. That your community can't just support you, it actually has to own the program. Oscar said a thing that was absolutely critical. The solicit the feedback and implement it is totally the fabric of our program. We have a community advisory committee. We've had it for 17 years, and for the first time in 17 years, we're looking at whether or not we actually still need to meet regularly as a committee because the program is so strong and so many of our policies are already set. But we've been, for 17 years, having regular meetings of community members and agency people come in and say, what are you hearing about the program in the community? What do you think? Should we allow couples matching? Should we allow cross-gender matching for women? Should we allow overnight? Should we allow every policy that we have in the program has been determined and signed off on by this community advisory committee who defend us in the community. And they also go out and sing our praises and help us find resources. So I think it's not just important to have the community support, but to have them be the owners of the program, especially in a rural program. You could probably get away in an urban program with having just the neighborhood that you're in support you. But I think when you're in a place like Calaveras or Amador or Tuolumne or any of these smaller counties, You have to know that your whole county is behind you, because if somebody decides that they want to undermine you, compete with you, or take you down, all it takes is really one phone call and a mentoring program's over. So those are my 3 salient points here. And I'm open to questions, but what I'd really like to hear is those of you who have mentoring programs, what you consider to be your keys for success.
Start in Jackson here in the room. Anybody want to share a mentoring program, what they feel made it successful?
Hello, I'm Naomi with Nexus Youth and Family Services, and I am a youth mentor advocate in the community. And one thing that I feel has really made everything successful in working with the youth and the at-risk youth is along the lines like Oscar was sharing. That's the right name, right? Oscar. And is really just listening. That's the number one most important thing I've learned in the time of working with youth. And I work from age 0 to up to 24. And it's just listening. And I think that's very important, because not everybody, when they're going through those teen years, feel like they're heard. And even when they're wrong, and I know in the back of my mind that they're wrong, I don't call them out. You know, I'm there to listen, and that is also part of the growth in being a mentor, is just not calling them out and letting them be a person and having them have their own voice. But I've learned that in the 2 years I've been doing this, is just listening. And then later on, you build that bond and you can guide them later on. But the first step is listening. It's very important to making your whole mentoring program successful.
Another component of ours that brings up for me that Oscar and I talked about was that concept of respect, that it doesn't just extend to the young people, it extends to their families and everyone who's involved in the mentoring program. And when we first started the program, the model was that our kids were half empty and that they were these, lonely little waifs that we needed to save. And as a PR person, I was quick to realize that that was not going to attract either volunteers or kids to participate. And I remember in the first several years of the program, kids would come and they would say, "So what's wrong with me?" I was like, well, you better keep that to yourself, because if you're going to be in this program, you got to be someone that's worth volunteer time abundance. So we have our kids actually apply. They have to go through an interview. They have to talk to us about why they think they deserve a mentor. And it has created such a different tone for the program and for the families in the program. And we're very, very careful that our families that we serve know that we are serving those families. We are not making up for some deficiency in those families. And I think, authentically believe that, right, Shira? I mean, I think it is what we're doing as a program, because we will always have at least a dozen kids on our waiting list. So we don't need to compel kids to participate. We want kids who want mentors. And even the kids who want mentors will struggle in relationship with an adult that we're just introducing them to. So we have to really guide and support the relationships. But the kids are all eager participants, plucky youngsters who have the chutzpah to think they need a mentor or they deserve a mentor to achieve their dreams in life.
I was going to say, one of the things I wanted to add, as a CASA and working in the CASA program where it's court appointed, it's a very different experience than what the volunteer. And that's one of the things we're going to talk a little bit about as we're in our networking segment, which is, how do you identify as a community who you're targeting? Unfortunately for us, one of the things that's happened in South Lake Tahoe is we will get kids that want a mentor, and we don't have a voluntary mentoring program. So people will call up and say, I've got this kid, they would do great in the CASA program. I'm like, oh, they have to be court appointed. So one, there's a gap in our community, which is difficult, but also it's very different as a mentor-mentee relationship, because there is that you're court appointed, you've got that court thing going on. One of the other things I wanted you to talk a little bit about was the evolution of your program, because I understand,
right,
as you were saying, the mentees now taking on mentees. and
So-
becoming mentors.
So where we are now is we started with the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program, which is an adult to youth, it's right along the Big Brothers Big Sisters model. In fact, we use their evaluation tools for our program, which is another issue. I think that rigorous and honest evaluation is a really key component of a sustainable program, because you're going to get too comfortable if you don't constantly ask people to tell you what you could be doing better. So what happened was, it's a long story, but the county had a grant, and I was supposed to be recruiting mentors for young people in a local high school, and I couldn't get any kids to sign up. And so I asked the kids, why are you not signing up? These were high schoolers. And they said, well, we feel a little more ready to be mentors than to have mentors. So I was aware of Jim Cooler, who ran the Governor's Mentoring Partnership and now runs FNL, the California Friday Night Live Partnership. And he had money to start an FNL mentoring program, which is high schoolers mentoring middle schoolers. So we started that program 11 or 12 years ago, and that's still going very strong. So both of our main high schools mentor the kids in the middle school as they're coming into high school. And then we moved from there into working on developing a young adult mentoring program. And now we have two versions of that. One is the independent living program for foster youth services. So we have our ILP program, which we run as a group mentoring program. And then we also have a young adult mentoring program that's a component of the Calaveras Youth Mentoring Program. And that's a group mentoring program as well. And Shira's here. I keep looking at her because she can answer any questions about that. And those are very much evolving models.
Do we have any online questions? And also I'm going to open up to our folks in Bishop. If they want to say anything, let us know, or maybe raise the hand, or.
I think our Bishop friends might be having electricity issues. I think they got knocked off the call, unless they're back in some way. Oh, I'm so sorry, Carrie. You're not Carrie Collins. Carrie Collins is sitting right next to me, but you are, in fact, from Bishop. Would you like to be? Can I unmute you and you could say your own thing?
Want to give it a try?
Okay, can you hear me now? Yes, was that a yay? Or you can hear me?
Yeah, thumbs up.
We do have an Inyo County mentoring program. It sits in our Inyo County Public Health and Prevention Department. Our prevention specialist coordinator is here today, and he wanted to share the input that our small rural counties is a benefit for our program. It is a strength because it's small. The tight-knit community really makes networking easy, and the community really supports the program. That's our input this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any other comments here?
So I have a question for you. On the side, I work with one of the local high schools for a service club, which I absolutely love. Do you have any of your mentors that get involved with their kids in any kind of service projects? Do they partnering, doing that type of thing?
Do you want to, I know the answer, but Shira's here, so she might as well. She needs.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that we encourage in each of the mentor-mentee relationships, including by offering opportunities. For example, when people were creating a mural, a mosaic mural in the park, hey, you guys can go out and participate in this, and they love it. I would say that's one of the highlight things that the participants in the program love to do together, and it gives such a great sense of identity and community action for the young person.
It's actually a requirement in the first year of matching in our program that every match do a community service project, and that they do what we call a mentee action plan. It's a map where they can come to the end of the year and recognize together an accomplishment that the young person has achieved with the help of the mentor. And those have ranged anywhere from
chicken tractor.
Yes, there was
they built a chicken tractor.
And someone tried to repair a boat which sank, but they did try to, but they did repair it. And one person learned how to swim underwater, and another person made baskets for needy families, and another kid, they built, this is a hysterical story. One of the mentor told me that they were they were building a trebuchet, and that I was like, you're what? He said, we're not quite ready to attack Angels Camp, but we can launch cat food across my living room. And so we built a trebuchet. But all kinds of fun projects, so that by the time they reach the milestone of their first year, they can point to actual accomplishments that the young person has had.
That's fantastic. I also wanted to point out that in your packet, there is a flyer from the Calaveras County Youth Mentoring Program, and also Catherine gave you some resources. There's a sheet with some resources, and I did send out to folks, and I'll put it in your in the highlights document I send out after. But they have a great video on their website, which again speaks from the heart, talking about why people mentor from the perspective of the mentor and then the mentee. So that's just some resources that you have. Anything else for Catherine? Any questions? Anything you want to share? Anyone? Online? Did you say that there was an online? Yes. Let me hold on. Let me run over without tripping.
I don't think she has a microphone, but Raina from Riverside County is saying, I have a question regarding evaluation of the program. I'm assigned to the System Improvement Plan for Riverside County Probation section, and we are looking to develop a mentoring program as an aftercare program once the youth return home from care. I would like to know what your program defines as success.
We have many different definitions of success. When we first started the program, as you would imagine, the definition of success was how many matches and how long they were lasting. And that probably took up the first 5 years. Can we sustain relationships, and can we sustain multiple relationships at a time? Because that's the first thing that you have to be able to do in order to have a sustainable program. Once we had that just down, I don't even know if it's the next level, but at the same time, there's a thing called a Youth Connectedness Survey, and it's a tried and true long-term evaluation tool, and that measures how engaged the youth is in the relationship. Do they have the sense that their relationship with their mentor is about them? And we use that as our fundamental tool. Is that working? If that's working, it's like a scale of 5, scale of 4. I can't remember which one it is, but once we had that nailed, then we really started looking at our Big Brothers, Big Sisters evaluation tools, which are very much about confidence, competence, and caring. So are the young people having stronger relationships with adults in their lives? Have they increased their self-esteem? There's a number of things. The Big Brothers, Big Sisters tools are fabulous. Okay. They really are. And they will make them available to anyone who wants to use them. So we have used those throughout the life of our program. So I would say that for us, if our young people are stronger and more confident and capable of better relationships, and they stay in relationship with their mentor and have a sense that that relationship is about them, those are our main things. And now that we have our young adult mentoring program, that actually has some more, we're trying to help them actually accomplish things. So there are a series of goals that are attached to that program based on what each kid wants to do.
Oh, coming. We have another question.
Thank you, Naomi, again here. And I was wondering, what is the lifespan or time frame that a youth is working with a mentor? How long does that look?
This is another fun question. When I started the program, I thought that I could make more matches and do it better if I limited every relationship to a year. So I know, I made a lot of mistakes. That was one of them. And finally, after I think 2 or 3 years in the program, a couple of mentors came to me and said, will you stop this nonsense? It takes us a year to get to know each other. The relationship happens after a year. You cannot keep canceling these, graduating people who've only known each other a year. So once I stopped doing that, relationships started staying in the program. And in our program, the longest relationship lasted until the kid was 18, because we did graduate matches at 18. Now we don't. Now we continue as long as the young person wants to continue in the relationship. So our longest match in our program was 7 years, 8 years. so far, but our longest relationship is the first relationship. They are still in touch, so it's 17 years long, and we're still in touch with the young person.
That's wonderful. So what are the age groups? I mean, when do you start?
We do first grade to 12th grade, or that's what we did. Now we do first grade to our eldest mentee is 22. And we had decided that, you know, I mean, maybe we'll say, do you think you might graduate when he hits 30? But we're just not. But we just reached a point again where we were getting to 18 and the mentors were saying, why are we graduating? This young person needs me now as much as ever. We just need new tools. We need new ways of being together so that I can help them into adulthood. And so we just evolved the program to serve them as young adults.
That's wonderful.
So wait. I know it's hard.
So you will accept new mentees into the program up to age 24? At what age are they accepted into the program? So if you have a 23-year-old, they could still be a mentee.
He actually joined at 22.
Somebody can join at 22.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I forgot another thing that I just wanted to bring up was the funding issue, because I reached a point in the running of the program. Again, mentors pretty much the community has driven the whole program, where a mentor who was a real mentor to me reminded me that I was never going to be able to grow the program and reach its potential if I didn't stop trying to fundraise while I was running the program. So he helped me create something called the Calaveras Mentoring Foundation, and that was in 2010, and it got incorporated as a 501c3 in 2011. Or no, 2010. So now we're 9 years into that, and that organization pledges annually most of the budget of the program. Last year they contributed $65,000 to the program, and this year they've pledged 80. Wow. So it's a very, very wonderful group of community members who do, and they don't even, well, I actually write the grants still, but so it's grants, fundraisers, and individual giving. There was another question.
Is there training for the mentors? And can you talk about that, what that looks like?
Do you want to do that one, Shira? Sure. Lots and lots of training for mentors. Yes. Robin knows this. She asked it on purpose.
Extensive training for mentors.
Oh, okay.
When they first are going through the screening process, the last element of that is a 4-hour pre-match mentor training. And that's really about helping them to understand what is the role of the mentor, what is their commitment, and then a lot of tools for being in relationship, like many of the things that we're talking about today. As they continue in their match over the year, we offer trainings every other month that range on topics that might come up. Nurture heart approach, so working with kids with trauma, recognizing sexual abuse, other topics like that. And then we alternate in the every other month with a mentor roundtable. And that's where the mentors have a chance to come together, eat a meal together, talk about what's going on in their matches, and get counsel from each other and from us as needed. In addition to that, as coordinators of the program, we're constantly supporting and training in the relationship, because the mentors report to us each week, how's it going? Here's what we did, here's what came up. And so we'll be in communication. Oh, maybe in this case you could do this, or did you think of this? So that training is ongoing.
And we also have every other month we have a group field trip or outing, and those are mostly contributed by community members where we can. So we have like a bowling night over at the Black Oak, and we have an annual holiday party. We have a winter and a summer party where we invite everyone who's associated with the program in any way. So all the parents and siblings and the spouses of the mentors. And so those are really, really big. Was that your question? So we do that twice a year so that our actual group outings can be exclusive to the program, because they're also match monitoring opportunities. So we have it all structured. It's a very, very highly structured program. But there's a reason for everything we do, and it all comes out of best practices, and it fits together really beautifully.
Any other questions for Catherine? No? Anything from our folks in the Netherlands? Not Netherlands. Yes.
So you have all these best practices and a manual of some kind, I'm sure. Is it something that could be shared with other counties?
Happily. The elements of effective practice are a national, this is what you have to have for a quality mentoring program. And it gets updated. The fourth version just came out like a year or two ago. So it's fairly up to date. But our model, we are somewhat eager to share with people because the way that it works inside the county office is so lean and so efficient. And I think that a lot of other counties don't start programs because they're intimidated by the cost. And I think that this model is an affordable model for a quality, sustainable mentoring program. So we were really grateful for the opportunity to share it with more people.
And, if it's possible, if you have a manual or something and you wouldn't mind, I could share that with the folks when I send out the follow-up information.
It's a little too big.
Big, okay. I can have it as a group.
But if people want to contact us, we
Okay.
can work with them.
And the
there's
information is on the flyer that's in your packet for contacting Catherine as well. So yeah, contact if you want that information. Excellent. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Catherine. Now we're getting a little confusing. So what I'd like you to do, we're going to have a couple of questions to ponder. And it depends on whether or not you have a program currently operating or you are looking to start a program. And clearly, Inyo County, you already have a program operating. But one of the things for the folks that are trying to start a program, and I think Catherine raised this, and it's such a great issue because I know it's an issue in our county and we have a program. How would you determine if your community has the capacity to sponsor a youth mentoring program? So the folks that don't have a program, if you guys could come up to this table here, and Catherine is going to work with you. She's going to be a part of that group. And then also we wanted you to think a little bit about how you would decide who you want to target for program services. Now, if I remember correctly, it seemed like most of the people here had a program, or am I incorrect on that? Oh, you're all with them. Okay. So any of the folks that don't have a program and want to answer that first question, the first two questions, how would you determine if your community has the capacity and who would you target? Okay, and then we can talk a little bit about that. We'll report out in about, what time is it now? About 12:15. And then for those people that have a program already, and I leave to Inyo County, the folks in Bishop, to talk about whatever you decide you want to, whatever's beneficial to you because you're operating a program right now. But these are some of the things I thought about. What are the challenges that you're facing right now? My county, a big challenge is finding mentors. That's a big, in South Lake Tahoe, not in my county. Placerville has they have so many mentors, they can't train them fast enough. South Lake Tahoe, we can't, scratch up a training class, or at least we couldn't for years. I'd have maybe 3 people. And then also, is there anything that you learned today that you want to bring back to your program and maybe implement? Okay, so we're going to do that for about until 12:15. So folks that do not have a program, come up here and Catherine can work with you. And then everyone else, because there's big groups, maybe if you guys can combine and you guys can combine and you guys can combine. Okay, so, and Oscar will work with you. That's right. Oscar's still here. They want you, Oscar, in the second group. So if you don't mind, just come together, maybe come over and bring a chair, and then anyone who does not have a program, come up here. And then Inyo County, I'll defer to you to answer the questions below or your own question, and then we'll report back at 12:15. Yeah, we're going to come back together for a brief check-in. Okay. Okay. We're gonna come together for a brief check-in. So if you could nominate someone from your table, then we're gonna answer this question or whatever question you want. I'm very easy about these things. But my thinking was to share with the group the top 3 challenges and ideas, 3 total, for improving or implementing a youth mentoring program. So think about that. And Shane first is going to read from our Inyo County site, who had to sign off, but they did share some feedback.
Yeah, so they said, okay, so the Inyo County folks said, in our reflection, participants really connected with Oscar's presentation. We discussed rural referral pathways for our Inyo mentoring program and some challenges the program has, like parents being suspicious of help and hesitant to complete the paperwork. We talked about success of kids just wanting to be listened to. And thank you for a great morning, Serena.
So let me just look at that real quick, because I'm wondering if Catherine can speak to parents being, do you have an issue with the parents being suspicious of the help of the mentor? Parents being suspicious of the mentor coming into their home. We do in the CASA program, but we've got that court appointed thing where they're like, they think we work for the court, which in essence we do, but we're volunteers. Do you have that issue?
We require that the parents be supportive of the students' participation before we start, and then we engage the parent in the screening process. And in the past, I don't know that we've had to do it in the last few years, but if the parent wanted an additional screening procedure, we would ask the volunteer to undergo it. Then we do a pre-match conference where we talk through all the areas where we foresee potential miscommunication. And we have all kinds of other things in place to try to strengthen parent-mentor relations. And yes, we still have issues with parents in the program.
Excuse me. Anybody else have that in their programs? Because I know with the CASA, we have a very similar thing. And because we're court appointed and the parents are probably at the lowest point in their life ever, when they have CPS, Child Protective Services in their lives, what I just tell my CASAs when they go in, when I was overseeing them, was, you know, to really go in soft and go in and explain who you are, provide some hope based on our knowledge. You know, many of us know of parents that made it through the system successfully and actually got something out of it. I always try to bribe people wherever possible. So, you know, we have a special housing program for people in CPS. So I'll mention that. We have special counseling services, childcare services for people that are receiving CPS services. So I try to say to the parents, you know, this is an opportunity. I know it's hard and I know it's terrible what you're going through right now, especially if your children are removed. But I do try to do, I'm a big briber. But
I want to give a plug. This is Shane from Strategies 2.0. I want to give a big plug to the Girl Scouts. I don't know the Boy Scouts as well, but I know I worked for Girl Scouts a couple different times in my career, and they are a fabulous mentor program as well. I know it's funny when you were talking earlier about getting, you know, getting volunteers. Girl Scouts, they're the queens of people calling and saying, oh, I need a troop for my girl. And so the first thing you say is, well, would you like to be a troop leader? Because that's really, you know, we may have a few spots here and there in a troop, but ultimately the best way to ensure that your child gets to participate in this program is that you become a troop leader, you become the mentor, right? So they have some really good techniques for kind of recruiting volunteers as well. And then I want to do a Strategies 2.0 plug for any of you who are interested in a training that we run called Youth, what is the new name for it? Youth Inspired. It used to be called Youth Thrive, which is a framework from the Center for the Study of Social Policy on working with older youth. And it's been revamped recently, and so it's a new name, and I can't think of it. Youth Inspired or Youth Empowered or something like that. So we can look at our website and find out. But if anybody's interested in any training around working with older youth with that CSSP framework in mind, let us know, because we'd love to come do that for you.
all right. So do we have somebody from each table that wants to be the leader of the pack and share a few things you talked about?
So I think one of the things that we shared here is in Amador County anyway, we're kind of fragmented as far as there's lots of different youth mentoring opportunities, I think, but we don't have a huge program like they do in Calaveras County. So because we have different funding sources and that type of thing. So that's probably one of the many challenges that I would say that we have. And I think another thing is we have to realize what is available in Amador County as far as working with youth.
Right.
And how we can build maybe upon that. We mentioned that Marion, who kind of started the lead in Calaveras County, you had a champion who went to the school system of all places and said, you know, we need a youth mentoring program. And so that kind of gave you a lot of all those things that you need as far as financial and respect and credibility and finding the kids and that type of thing. So I think those are some of the things that we just kind of have to look at. Where are we now? What could be possible? You know, how can we partner? That type of thing.
And Amador has a CASA program. Right. And so why don't you would you mind handing that, because I'm afraid so you have a mentoring that's voluntary, and you have a CASA program
We're
that's
paid mentors.
Oh.
Yeah, so we are, it's advocacy mentorship.
Okay.
It's the same thing. We have male mentors, and I am the female mentor.
Wow.
And we get referred our clients through referrals from behavioral health or school administrators, teachers, counselors, therapists, so on and so forth.
Interesting.
Yeah, XY, and it's through Nexus Youth and Family Services.
All right, so you have paid mentors and you have CASA.
CASAs are volunteers, and those are directly with foster youth.
Right, with kids in the court
Correct.
system.
And then us in the XY program work with anybody.
Okay.
0 to age 24.
So you answer the question, like when people would call our CASA program and say, we need a mentor, and I say, well, I'm sorry, you have to be court appointed. They can send them to you.
They send the referrals to Nexus Youth and Family Services, and that's for Amador County.
Neat. Amador. That's Amador County. Do you want to share and talk about your any of your challenges or what you discussed at your table?
Well, yeah, I was picking Oscar's brain, sorry, but
that's okay. Pick
so
away.
I'm gonna have Angie share.
She was having a side conversation.
She was having the sidebars. We talked about limit.
Picking brains is good.
She was in a learning community. You're allowed to.
So we talked about CASA in Calaveras as well as the mentoring program, and the nice thing right now is that we're trying to partner together. Unfortunately, as a CASA, that relationship ends when good, because we're made by design to be temporary, but we're trying to refer those kids to the mentoring program, and there's a little bit of, we're trying to do some partnership with our volunteers to be a little bit of both. So that's kind of exciting.
That's great.
And one of the problems we have, like everyone else, as Oscar said, is the unicorns out there. Men are tough to find.
Yes.
We have our unicorn here.
Yay!
One of our 3 unicorns in our county. But 3, is that right? 3. We have a plethora of unicorns. So that is super challenging to find men and target men. Because I think, I don't know why. I mean, there's lots of reasons, but, and then what's another? I think that eliminating barriers can be challenging in a county that may not know what the difference is between a mentor program and a CASA program.
Right.
So we're often playing, no, you want mentoring program. Here's their number. Or, and knowing the difference that we as court officers have access to things the mentors wouldn't have because we are officers of the court. We can, we're also an information gathering folks. So it's a higher, not higher because it's not higher, it's a different level of mentoring. It's ours is really focused more on best interest of the child rather than, I think you guys are too, but you know what I mean.
But in a court defined.
In a court setting rather
yes,
than
it's in a court defined
life
right.
setting.
Yeah, no.
But your focus is the relationship between the two. Our focus is not only the relationship, but also how can we best help this child and referring them out to this other relationships that they need in their lives.
From the perspective of the Calaveras Youth Mentoring, do you have men? Do you have unicorns? Do you have a lot of unicorns?
We're sharing a unicorn.
You're sharing that one guy, okay. Because we have the same problem in CASA, in South Lake and Placerville, men and also people that habla español. That's a big issue. Yes. So, my first CASA case, I've studied Spanish my whole life, but never really, been able to speak well. But I spoke enough that I was like the person that went to these families, and it was comical because if it weren't for the kids, I would have been up a creek because I could introduce myself, and then once they started sharing their issues, I had a problem. So, those are our two areas. And having somebody who is a Spanish speaker that's native, that's just so much better, But the trust issue becomes triple when you deal with the language as well as all the other things. But we did get some men in our program. What I have found from the CASA perspective, the number one reason why people left CASA was the system. That's what they would say, the system. And what that meant when you dug a little deeper was, I didn't like the court's decision. I didn't like the way the family was handled. And I didn't like the way I was treated in court. Because I'm a volunteer and I should be treated with respect. And if you've been in court, that is not the way it is. That you're not treated. As a matter of fact, it's contentious and it can be very stressful.
Well, I'm going to argue that a little bit, and that it's not, luckily in Calaveras, it's not contentious necessarily. I think sometimes we don't feel heard, but I wouldn't say we haven't been disrespected by the court.
Well, I don't think the court's really disrespecting the person. I think it's how they felt. I'm talking about they felt disrespected. I don't think the court was disrespecting them. It was just the process. And if you made a recommendation in your court report that the lawyer for the parent disagreed with, or the lawyer for the child disagreed with, you were confronted on that, and in a very confrontational way. And that is, for some people, is very, very difficult. And I found my worst CASAs were lawyers, people that were retired attorneys, because they had an expectation when they went into court. This is what, they were going to be heard, and they were going to, and it's not like that. It's a very different environment. So yeah, I think they were heard. They just may not have felt heard.
Yeah, not being heard.
Or misunderstood. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Do you want to pass the mic to Naomi?
I would just say, when dealing with the challenges, and even with myself working in Amador County with youth, it's also working with the adults.
Yes.
And I think that working well together is very important to have success, because when children are very smart and they're sponges, and they watch and they pay attention. So it's definitely very important to see the adults coming together and having that unity and respect for one another, which will fall into doing the mentoring with the youth.
Yeah, you don't want to undermine the parents or other adults in the child's life, because that's
absolutely. Yeah, and they watch that. They trust me. I grew up in the system. They're paying attention to the adults more than the children.
Right. They may not speak, but they watch.
Oh,
they
and
do.
I do have 2 male unicorns to refer you for your CASA in Placerville. They live in Diamond Springs.
Nice.
So see me after.
Yeah, great. Anybody over this crowd in the back here is quietly sitting? No, you know. They were in your group. Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all so much for your time. After this, I want to just show my last picture because I had a laugh doing this because I did this on Friday. Ha ha ha, it was snowing in Tahoe, yeah. So it was snowing in Tahoe. Some of the snow falls. It's that time of year. But anyway, so next steps, I'll send you all a summary of what we talked about, which I've written here. I hope I can remember it, as well as a link to all the materials. And don't forget about our YouTube channel where this is all videoed. And hopefully I'll see some of you in November 20th. So great, thank you so much. And do your evaluations and take food. I do not have a certificate of attendance. I'm sorry, but I can talk to you later. I can email you if you want.